cold weather. On the top of Mount Evie, the snow blanketed the ground and sky, transforming the landscape into a white, ethereal realm. The air was frigid and biting, each gust of wind cutting through the thickest of clothes and chilling the bones. Yet, the harsh weather could not deter Tommy and Rondu. They moved with purpose, their breaths visible in the cold air, but their spirits undaunted by the biting cold. Tommy turned to Rondu, his eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and determination. "The potential of the Fire Dragon Fist is enormous," he said, his voice steady despite the chill. "You have the intelligence and capability to transform the Fire Dragon Fist into another martial art, just as my senior brother did." When Tammy mentioned his senior brother, a moment of reflection passed over his face. His eyes seemed to look inward, recalling memories of training and camaraderie. He then continued, "You have finished learning the basics of the Fire Dragon Fist. As long as you practice every day, your punches will become more flexible and their speed will increase. The longer you practice, the more you will see the magic of this martial art." Rondu nodded, absorbing his master's words. The Fire Dragon Fist had already become a fundamental part of his martial arsenal, but he understood that mastery required relentless practice and deeper understanding. Introducing Shadow Cloud Kick, Tammy smiled, seeing Rondu's determination. "Today, we will go deeper into the Shadow Cloud Kick," he announced. "A few months ago, I demonstrated a few moves for you. Now it's time for you to learn them fully." The Shadow Cloud Kick includes 18 different kicking positions. The stronger your internal power, the more powerful your kicks will be. As he spoke, Tammy turned around and launched 2 consecutive kicks, one from his right foot and one from his left. The movements were swift and precise, a blur in the snowy air. He then raised his foot high and brought it down with tremendous force on a Zeep steel statue. The statue shook from the impact, a testament to the power behind Tommy's kicks. "You have strong legs and internal power," Tommy said, turning back to Rondu. "But your legs lack flexibility. It's time to give your legs the flexibility they need." Rondu listened attentively, his eyes fixed on Tammy. He knew that flexibility was crucial for executing the advanced techniques of the Shadow Cloud Kick. Without it, even the strongest kicks would lack the speed and precision required. The flexibility training. Tammy led Rondu to a designated training area, where a thick rope and a large lump of iron, weighing over 100 kilograms, were set up. The setup looked intimidating, but Rondu was ready for the challenge. Tammy tied the rope to the iron, then threw the other end of the rope over a sturdy crossbar. He tied the free end of the rope to Rondu's leg. "Use your foot to pull this piece of iron up, and drop it gently without making a sound," Tammy instructed. "You should do it." Rondu nodded, focusing his internal power into his legs. He began to lower his legs from above and tried to pull up the iron. At first, the task seemed almost impossible. The iron block collided with the ground with loud thuds, the sound echoing through the cold air. But Rondu was determined. He gritted his teeth and continued to focus his power and energy into his legs. Gradually, Rondu started to gain better control over the movements. The iron block no longer crashed to the ground, but was lowered and lifted more gently with each attempt. His legs became more flexible, each movement more rhythmic and controlled. The sounds of the collisions faded until there was no noise at all. Progress and mastery. Rondu's progress over the next few days was remarkable. His legs grew stronger and more flexible, his movements more fluid and precise. The once seemingly impossible task of lifting and lowering the iron block became second nature. Each session of practice brought more control and finesse, and Rondu began to feel a new level of mastery over his body. Tammy watched with satisfaction as Rondu's skills improved. "Your progress is impressive, Rondu," he remarked one morning as they stood at the training area. "But remember, the key to mastering the Shadow Cloud Kick is not just physical strength or flexibility. It's about integrating your internal power with your physical movements seamlessly." Rondu nodded, understanding the importance of Tommy's words. His internal power was the source of his strength, but without control and integration, it would be ineffective. Deepening the training. As the weeks passed, Tommy introduced new and more challenging exercises to Rondu's training regimen. He devised complex routines that combined elements of the Fire Dragon Fist with the Shadow Cloud Kick, pushing Rondu's limits further each day. One of the most challenging exercises involved performing the shadow cloud kick while maintaining balance on a narrow beam of ice. This exercise not only tested Rondu's kicking techniques, but also his balance, focus, and mental discipline. The cold wind made the beam slippery, and each misstep meant starting over. Rondu spent hours on the beam, practicing his kicks. He fell many times, but each fall only fueled his determination to succeed. He learned to adapt his movements to the icy surface, using his internal power to maintain balance and control. Slowly but surely, his kicks became more precise and powerful, even on the precarious surface. The final test. After months of intense training, Tommy decided it was time for Rondu to face the final test of his mastery over the shadow cloud kick. He led Rondu to a secluded area of Mount Evi, where the snow was deep and the terrain was rugged. This place was chosen to test Rondu's skills in the most challenging conditions. Today, you will demonstrate your mastery of the shadow cloud kick, Tommy announced. You will perform all 18 kicking positions in succession against various targets I have set up around this area. Remember, use your internal power to guide your movements and stay focused. Rondu took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill his lungs. He centered himself, drawing on his internal power, and began the sequence. The first few kicks were powerful and precise, breaking through the snow and hitting the targets with unerring accuracy. As he moved through the positions, the terrain became more challenging. The snow was deeper, and the targets were more difficult to reach. But Rondu remained focused, his movements fluid and controlled. Each kick was a testament to his hard work and determination, a perfect blend of strength, flexibility, and internal power. The final position was the most challenging. It required Rondu to perform a high kick while maintaining balance on a narrow ledge. He drew on everything he had learned, his internal power surging through his body. With a swift, powerful movement, he executed the kick, hitting the target with precision. Tammy watched with pride as Rondu completed the sequence. "You've done well, Rondu," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You have mastered the shadow cloud kick and proven your dedication and determination. But remember, this is just one step in your journey. There is always more to learn and more ways to grow." Reflection and future goals. Rondu stood at the top of Mount Evi, looking out at the vast, snowy landscape. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had overcome incredible challenges and pushed his limits to new heights. But he also knew that his journey was far from over. There were still many mountains to climb, both literally and metaphorically. As he reflected on his training, Rondu felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to continue pushing himself, to explore new techniques and master new skills. The lessons he had learned from Tammy were invaluable, but he knew that true mastery required a lifelong commitment to growth and improvement. Tammy approached, placing a hand on Rondu's shoulder. "I see the fire in your eyes, Rondu," he said. "Never lose that drive. Always strive to be better, to push your limits. And remember, the true essence of martial arts is not just about physical strength or skill. It's about the harmony between your mind, body, and spirit." Rondu nodded, feeling the weight of Tommy's words. He understood that his journey was as much about self-discovery and inner growth as it was about physical mastery. He was ready to embrace the challenges ahead, knowing that each step would bring him closer to his true potential. The transformation. 3 years had passed since Rondu first set foot on the summit of Mount Evi. At the age of 18, Rondu had blossomed into a young man full of vitality and strength. His body, honed by years of rigorous training, was powerful and resilient. Every step he took seemed to resonate with the power of the mountains and forests that surrounded him. His punches and kicks were no longer mere movements. They were expressions of absolute grace and strength, executed with the precision and power of a seasoned warrior. Rondu's eyes, once filled with the uncertainty of youth, now sparkled with determination and desire. He had grown not only as a warrior, but as an idealistic individual who believed in the power of perseverance and constant effort. He was convinced that with unyielding dedication, he could master any challenge and discover his own limits. Tommy stood beside Rondu, his eyes filled with pride. The transformation he had witnessed over the past 3 years was nothing short of extraordinary. Rondu had evolved from an ordinary young man into an outstanding fighter. His legs, once clumsy and inflexible, could now perform the perfect shadow cloud kick. These kicks were not only powerful but also exhibited incredible flexibility and speed, a testament to Rondu's dedication and hard work. Mastering the elements, today, on the top of Mount Evie, snow continued to fall, but the cold was no longer an obstacle for Rondu. He stood in the midst of the snowstorm, his concentration unbroken, his movements fluid and precise. Each kick he delivered was strong and accurate, each motion steady and silent. The heavy iron weights, once a formidable challenge, had become tools for him to practice his finesse and sensitivity. Rondu's mind drifted back to the early days of his training. He remembered the struggle, the pain, and the fatigue that had accompanied each exercise. The memory of his initial clumsiness and the countless times he had fallen was still vivid. But now, he had become a living testament to the power of perseverance and relentless effort. His strength and maturity were not only reflected in his muscles and internal power, but also in his spirit, which had been forged through the trials and tribulations of his training. The spirit of perseverance, Rondu's journey on Mount Evie, was not merely a physical transformation. It was a profound journey of self-discovery and inner growth. He had learned the true essence of martial arts, the harmony between mind, body, and spirit. Each training session, each challenge had taught him valuable lessons about patience, resilience, and the importance of never giving up. As he stood in the snowstorm, Rondu felt a deep sense of gratitude towards Tommy, who had guided him through this incredible journey. Tommy's teachings had not only transformed him into a formidable warrior, but also instilled in him the values of discipline, humility, and perseverance. Rondu knew that his journey had just begun, and there were many more challenges ahead. But he was ready to face them with unwavering resolve. "I will continue to train, continue to explore and push beyond all limits," Rondu declared, his voice steady and resolute. He knew that true mastery was a lifelong pursuit, and he was committed to continuing his journey of growth and self-improvement. A new beginning. One morning, the soft light of dawn broke over the top of Mount Evie, signaling the arrival of spring. The first rays of sunlight crept through the leaves, casting a golden hue over the entire landscape. The scene glowed with pure beauty and vitality, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers and grass, soothing the soul. Tommy stood on the mountain peak, his eyes sparkling as he gazed into the distance, where rolling mountains were hidden under a veil of mist. Beside him, Rondu stood with eager but anxious eyes, looking at his teacher. "Today I will teach you Ice Storm Sword and Silver Moon Light," Tommy said, his deep voice resonating in the quiet space. "But first, you must possess a sword." Rondu was surprised. "A sword? Where did I find it, master?" he asked. Tammy smiled and nodded. "Go down the mountain and find blacksmith Ren. He will make you a sword. He is the best blacksmith of all time. All the most famous weapons in the world are created by him, but he is extremely eccentric and strange. He always sets a condition before creating a weapon for someone." Rondu suddenly remembered the gun he had used to kill the blood snake. "Mother Durika told me his name before she gave me the gun," he thought to himself. "Master, what are the conditions?" he asked. Tammy looked at Rondu, his eyes serious. "You must kill a person at his request in exchange for him creating a weapon. Even if you bring a bunch of money, he wouldn't care." Rondu was taken aback. "That's strange," he said. Tammy nodded and continued, "I think you're gentle and you can't kill innocent people. But with your intelligence, you can convince him your way. Maybe he changes accordingly and luckily. I don't know." Rondu asked again, "But why does he have such a strange request?" Tammy looked into the distance, his voice thoughtful. "Let me tell you a story about him. He has a very beautiful, but extremely flirtatious wife. Whatever money he made, he brought it back to support her hobbies. One day, she informed him that she wouldn't be with him anymore, and would go with someone else. He cried hysterically and begged her not to leave. She followed another man silently, leaving him in extreme pain. After a few days of research, he learned that the man his wife followed was the leader of a notorious gang. He discovered the woman he once called his wife was holding hands with another man. After many days of depression, he said to himself, "I must take revenge. You must die horribly." He has a secret plan. A few days later, Muris and Luis, the two assassins leading the 10 great assassins, came to him and asked him to forge 2 short swords for Muris and a sword for Luis. Looking at the two, he spoke, "I'm not Rusi anymore. Rusi is dead. If you two want to have your weapons, each do one thing for me." Muris looked at him and asked, "What?" He replied, "Bring back my wife and the man she followed." Muris asked, "Why them?" He said nothing, pondered for a moment, and then told Muris and Luis his story. Muris deeply sympathized with him because Muris had also been betrayed. Muris said, "I will help you." In that moment, Rondu understood that his mission was not only to find a sword, but also to face harsh challenges and discover himself. Dawn on the top of Mount Devi not only brought the light and hope of spring, but also marked the beginning of an arduous journey and new discoveries. Tommy's tale. Tommy continued, his voice even but laden with tension, recounting the dark history of Ren, the renowned blacksmith. The story was as chilling as the night that enveloped the mountaintop. Muris and Luis waited for the opportune moment to strike. When they saw the man and Ren's wife strutting into the restaurant with 10 juniors, Muris turned to Luis and asked, "Are you sure this is Ren's wife?" Luis replied firmly, "Yes, according to Ren's description." The two assassins walked into the restaurant calmly, their eyes cold but sharp. They stood before the man and Ren's wife. Muris's voice rang out, ice cold and precise. "Are you Ren's wife?" Ren's wife turned to look at the two men, confused and not knowing what to say. The man stood up aggressively. "What if it's true? Did Rusi send you two here?" Muris replied coldly, "Have you heard of the 10 great assassins?" He paused for effect, then shouted, "I am Muris." The man's face turned pale, and he stepped back at the mention of the 10 great assassins and Muris. His subordinates, however, were not deterred. They pulled out their hammers and attacked Muris and Luis. In a split second, Muris drew 2 short swords and shattered the hammers in the hands of 3 juniors. Meanwhile, Luis unsheathed his sword and slashed through the bodies of 3 other men. Muris, with deadly precision, slashed the faces and bodies of the remaining 3 men. 6 men died miserably, their lives ending before they even realized what had happened. The remaining 4 men fled in terror. Muris pointed his short sword straight at the man, his pose impressive and intimidating. The man and Ren's wife were numbed and speechless. The man stammered, "Please spare my life, sir. I will do as you ask." Muris and Luis tied the 2 up and brought them back to Ren. The retribution. When Ren saw the 2 people kneeling at his feet, his rage was palpable. He grabbed a Zeep steel knife and glared at the bound man. "I will let you taste the pain slowly before I take your life," Ren said, his voice seething with fury. Having spoken, he stabbed the man in the right chest. The man cried out in pain. Ren's eyes blazed with anger as he spoke again. "Are you crying? When I cried, did anyone listen when my wife followed you?" Ren stabbed the man again, this time in the stomach. Blood poured out profusely, but it did nothing to quell Ren's anger. He stabbed him 2 more times, and the man collapsed, lifeless. Ren then turned to his wife, who was now in a state of extreme panic. She begged for Ren's forgiveness. "I beg you not to kill me. I promise I will be a good wife. I will take care of you for the rest of my life. I will be with you forever." Hearing this, Ren hesitated. He couldn't bear to take action against the woman he had once loved so deeply. He turned away, tears streaming down his face. Suddenly, he heard a scream. "Ah!" followed by the sound of swords and knives piercing flesh. He turned back to see Muris killing his wife. "Women like you cannot live in this world," Muris said coldly. "If he doesn't do it, I'll do it for him." Ren looked at Muris, stammering, "You." But then he silently agreed with Muris. He shouted, "One life, one weapon." The haunting scene outside, the night sky remained quiet and undisturbed, but inside Ren's house, the air was thick with the smell of blood and horror. The silence was eerie, broken only by the sound of Ren's heavy breathing and the dripping of blood onto the floor. Muris and Luis left quietly, leaving behind a haunting scene. Tommy's voice trailed off as he finished the story. Rondu stood silent, absorbing the gravity of what he had just heard. The story was a stark reminder of the darkness that could consume a person and the lengths one might go to seek revenge. It was also a testament to the complexities of human emotions and the consequences of betrayal. Rondu's reflection. Rondu felt a profound sense of unease. The story of Ren's vengeance weighed heavily on his mind. He had come to understand that his mission was not just about acquiring a sword, but also about confronting the darker aspects of human nature and his own capacity for action. As he stood on the summit of Mount Evie, the dawn breaking over the horizon, Rondu knew that the journey ahead would test not only his physical abilities, but also his moral compass. He was determined to navigate these challenges with the integrity and wisdom that Tommy had instilled in him. Rondu turned to Tommy, his eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and apprehension. "I understand the gravity of my mission now, Master," he said. "I will find a way to earn Ren's respect and obtain the sword without compromising my principles." Tommy nodded, a look of pride in his eyes. "I believe in you, Rondu. Remember, true strength comes from within, and sometimes the greatest battles are fought in the heart and mind. Go forth with courage and wisdom."